It's Memorial Day weekend, the sun is shining, the flowers are starting to bloom, and today I'm going to talk to you about some annual and perennial flowers, shrubs, and ornamental grasses you can add to your landscape to up your curb appeal. It's going to add color, texture, and it's something you can do on your own that doesn't cost a lot of money. If you just moved to a new house or you're looking to spruce up your landscape, it's important to think about the amount of sunlight that you get in the area where you're going to be planting. Whether it's annuals or perennials, you want to be able to put plants in an area where they're going to thrive. So it's important to figure out how much sun you're going to get throughout the day, which can change sometimes depending on the season and the angle of the sun. So in the front yard up here, we usually get about at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. So these are pretty much all full sun plants that I have up here, and most of these are perennials. Perennial means they come back every single season. Annuals mean you plant them for one season, and then at the end of the season, that's it. You have to plant them every year. When it comes to perennials, they don't bloom as long as annuals, but you don't have to plant them every year. They're going to continue to come back. When I'm setting up my landscape, one thing I want to think about is how big are all these plants going to get, because when you buy them, they're not always full size. So it's important to look at the packaging when you're buying plants, and it's going to tell you exactly how much light it should get and what the size of the plant is going to be. And in our landscape beds, I like to have what's called stadium seating. I kind of came up with that. You go to a stadium, you don't want to block out the seats in the back, right? So the landscape in the back, I want to put my bigger things back there. The medium size I put in the middle, and the smaller things I like to put in the front. That way everything gets good light and you can see everything when it's blooming. You don't want to have something that's beautifully blooming, but it's blocked out by something else. So the positioning of things are important. So like I said, I like to have my smaller stuff in the front, medium in the middle, and my bigger things in the back. So let's take a look at some of the different perennial flowers and plants that we have in our landscape. In the front of our house, the landscape beds that you see, I've pretty much overhauled all of this since when we moved into our house. And one thing that I really like about our landscape is having nonstop color. And one thing that provides that are the roses that you see over here. These are called knockout roses. I bought these, I think, at Lowe's. They're about $20 per rose that you buy, and they get big throughout the season. And one thing that's really nice about them is they bloom in cycles. So basically from May through November, sometimes even December, you're going to get cycles of blooms. They'll bloom, the petals will fall off, and then there's going to be new buds that come out with new flowers that are eventually going to bloom. These things are beautiful. They provide you with nice color. There's also what are called double knockout roses. And you see those behind me. Double knockout roses are the same thing, but they have twice as many petals, which I wish I had known that before I bought the regular knockout. I mean, who wouldn't want twice as many petals of nice, beautiful roses? So these things add constant color throughout the growing season, which I really like. Also in the front, where I like to have my smaller perennial flowers, these are also lilies. There's different types of lilies, and these have really beautiful red flowers that come. There's little buds on here that you can see, and those buds are what are going to end up being the flowers. So these will bloom. The blooms will last for about a week or so. The petals will fall off, and then there will be new blooms that come after that. These are going to bloom in about mid-June. And something else to think about when you're planting your perennials is the timing of when things are going to bloom. I like for things to be like a fireworks show. When something's blooming and once they start to wilt a little bit, I want something else to be ready to pop off, just like a fireworks show. So starting in early spring, you want to think about what can I put in the landscape to make sure once the weather breaks, I'm going to have something with some color. So things like daffodils, tulips, those are some of the earliest bloomers that you have. So it's important to think about the timing of when things are going to bloom. Next to the lilies, we have these, which are called cone flowers, and these have really nice looking purple and pink flowers, and they look like sunflowers. They look like miniature sunflowers. These things are going to bloom also around mid-June, and they'll bloom all the way throughout July and into August. A new perennial I put in last year is this, and it's called salvia. This gets really nice looking purple flowers. These are the buds right now. They haven't really bloomed yet. They'll be blooming coming up here in the next few weeks. But if you look up close, you can see the purple starting to form. It's got a cool texture and it's got that nice purple color. The second level of our landscape, right here on each side of our tall ornamental grass, we have these, and these are hydrangeas. and they look just like a regular shrub right now, but later on in the season, these are gonna have really big white flowers that are just beautiful. So these are mainly gonna bloom in the late summer and the fall. So where the front, everything's mainly blooming in the summertime, this second level, we have some things that are gonna be blooming later on in the fall, and I like to spread things out a little bit so we have continuous blooms, and that's also why I like the knockout roses, because those always provide color for you. So these, along with the hydrangeas on the other side, I really love those. The hydrangeas over there have pink flowers. These ones are mainly white. And in the middle, we have this ornamental grass. This is called zebra grass. And with the zebra grass, this is gonna continue to grow. It'll eventually get to be about 7 or 8 feet tall. And I leave that throughout the winter time. It loses its color. It's not gonna continue to be green all winter, but it adds some texture and it just looks cool in the landscape. My last level of landscape that we have, this is what's called a Rose of Sharon. And something cool about this is I actually made this plant from the other plant on the opposite side of our house. So we have a Rose of Sharon on that side, and these things drop seeds, and those seeds turn into their own individual little plants. So it started off as like 2 inches tall. I put it in a little pot, kept water and fertilizer on it for about a year. It got bigger. I planted it on this side about 2 years ago, and now it's turned into a really big shrub. And these things are beautiful in the late summertime, so about end of July through August and September, and even into October, these things bloom and they look like a hibiscus plant. So on the other side of our front door, as you can see, we get a lot less sunlight over here because the trees block out the majority of the sunlight that area gets. So this is our shaded area, and over here we still have some plants that I really like, and most of these are perennials, like all the things I already mentioned. Everything I talked about already, those are perennials, meaning they come back every season. And these right here next to me, these are called rhododendrons. And right around Memorial Day every year, these things start to bloom. And the blooms they have look like the azaleas that you see at the Masters at Augusta. And that's why I really love these. These are evergreen as well. So these waxy leaves that they have stay on all year, which I like in the wintertime because it makes things look like they're still alive, which most things aren't in the wintertime. So these things bloom around now. Once they're done with their blooms is when I like to fertilize them because they spend a lot of energy putting those flowers out. Really like these rhododendrons. We also have, since we're in the shade, I added some hostas, and hostas have these big green leaves, which are pretty cool. They also have flowers that come out. They're starting to bloom right about now. They have nice whitish purple flowers that come out. And I have some annuals that I added for a little color up here too. And these annuals next to me, these are called impatiens. So impatient baskets, I got these at Lowe's. They were like 2 for $15. Just put them up on some hooks right here, and they add a little bit of color to this shaded area. Of all the things we have in our landscape, my absolute favorite is the tree that you see behind me. This is called a bloodgood Japanese maple. And this was here obviously when we moved into the house because this thing's probably older than I am. But the beautiful red leaves, it just looks really cool. And at nighttime, I have some uplighting that goes up on it. It shines up into those red leaves and it's just beautiful. And we've undergone a pretty major overhaul in our backyard. We used to have huge Colorado blue spruce trees that blocked so much sunlight, but those are gone now. So we've got some new opportunities. So what we did recently is we put in these new bushes. These are called PJM Rhododendrons, and these are absolutely gorgeous. In the springtime, they have big, beautiful flowers that bloom just like the azaleas at Augusta National for the Masters tournament. These things like acidic soil, so if you don't have an acidic soil, I'd highly recommend, if you want to get rhododendrons like these, you get some sort of acidic fertilizer. I'm going to use Hollytone. That's what I picked up with these. I sprinkled some of that around the base of the bushes when I put them in. They're looking good. So this is the first step that I took into getting that beautiful, somewhat tropical looking backyard. Next would be Petunia Baskets that you see behind me. These things I really love in the summertime. These are proven winter petunias. You can also get the wave petunias. Those are beautiful too, and they continue to grow throughout the summertime. They cascade over the side of the baskets and they hang down. They look really awesome. Right here we've got another hanging basket. These are petunias, and if you're growing petunias, you can find these things anywhere, first of all. But one thing you can do with your petunias is doing what's called deadheading them. So when the petunias start to look like this, if you pull these off of there, it's gonna start making more flowers. So if you go through every now and then and you deadhead them by doing what I just did, just pulling these off, once they're past their bloom, you're gonna get more blooms to come. You can just leave them and they'll eventually fall off, but if you do this, you're gonna get more blooms continuously. These things cascade over the side, and by September, they're gonna be hanging down almost to the ground, which is awesome. So I really love these. They add really good color. They give you that tropical feel that I'm going for. The next step in getting that tropical looking landscape is having some nice color with your annual flowers. And these are two of my favorites right here. These are red geraniums. I love the big blooms on these things. They're really beautiful. The bees like them. You get butterflies, all kinds of things that come. When you're growing these, a couple things to think about is you have to prune these a little bit. So they get these big red flowers here, but once they start falling off, once about half of those have fallen off, you take your hand, come down to the base of the flower, and you want to break that off because the flower is going to continue putting energy into this even though there's nothing there. So if you take that off, you're going to get more blooms that come out. So as I look around, if I see any that have about less than half of the blooms still on, I pop those things off, I break them off, and then you're going to get more blooms because of that. Next are these red begonias, and these honestly are my favorite annual flower that I plant every year, mainly because they get so big, they grow up into a big mound that ends up looking like this. And if you water them daily, and if you give them fertilizer, like I'm going to talk about later on, these things get really big and beautiful, and they are just awesome. They give you a tropical feel with all the color, and these are some of the things that really make our landscape stand out because of all the color that you get from these. Another one of my absolute favorite annual flowers that gives beautiful color and grows into a huge mound that looks like this are these, what look tiny. You probably can't even see them very well right now, but these are called sun patiens. It's kind of hard to believe that these tiny little plants get as big as they do, but these things are gonna fill up this entire area by the end of the summer. Sun patiens, I really love these things. If you can find them, I highly recommend them. One thing that's really unique about our landscape compared to a lot of other people in our climate is the fact that we have palms. This is a spindle palm. I got this about 2 years ago, and I keep this out here from about May 1st all the way through about November 1st, and it survives and thrives pretty well in those conditions. These things like high humidity, they like warmth. Obviously, palms don't like to be out in the cold. So when it does get cold outside, I dig it out, I put it in a pot, I bring it inside, and I grow it for the winter time. I love the look and the feel of palm trees. When you're hanging out in your backyard, you got company over, it just feels so good to have what looks like a tropical landscape for 6 months out of the year. Speaking of palms, I can't forget to mention my absolute favorite part of our backyard, and something that turns people's heads and makes them go, what the heck? How do you have that at your house and you live in a cold climate? But this is our, I want to say 13-foot majesty palm. This last part is the biggest difference maker when it comes to growing big, beautiful flowers, and that's fertilizing them just like you would fertilize your lawn. So what I use is every Sunday, I use Miracle-Gro plant food. This stuff's water soluble. With this, you can also get the Miracle-Gro garden feeder, which is the hose end connection right here. It makes it really easy. All you do is take the bag out, open that up, take the top off of this, and then you dump the fertilizer into the hose end sprayer. And then as you water your flowers, the fertilizer is going to come out, and it makes it really easy. So you just fill that to the top, put this back on, run the hose like you normally would, and all that fertilizer is going to come out and fertilize your plants. If you don't want to get this, you can just get the fertilizer and you can put it in a watering can and you can mix it yourself. So I'll put a link in the description to this. It's pretty inexpensive, but it makes a huge difference, and it's pretty much foolproof. If you can stay consistent with it at least once a week or once every 2 weeks with your fertilizing, you're going to get great results. They also have this for acid-loving plants like azaleas and rhododendrons and hydrangeas, so you could get that also if that's what you're growing. Thanks so much for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.